Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's meeting of full council. Welcome also to those members of the press and public who are joining us via the live stream. Before we begin, please can I take this opportunity to remind member and officer colleagues to turn mobiles and computers to silent and ensure that when using the microphones, the red light is on and then turned off when you have finished speaking. We move to agenda item 1. Can I please ask member services to report any apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies received today from councillors Barber, Christie, Count, Miss French, Marks, Mockett, Dr Nawaz and Councillor Senate Clough. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. In view of apologies having been received from Councillor Barber, the standing orders for ordinary meetings of the council permit at paragraph 2.1b the election of a person to preside if the vice chairman is not present. I would like to propose, please, that Councillor Humphrey fulfills this role for the purpose of today's meeting. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Bowden, thank you. Are there any alternative nominations? Thank you. Councillor Humphrey is duly elected as Vice Chairman for the purpose of this meeting. Would you like to join us, please? Agenda item 2 is the previous minutes. The next item on the agenda is to request approval of the minutes of the meeting held on the 15th of July 2024. These can be viewed at pages 3 to 8 of the agenda pack. I would like to move approval of the minutes. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Patrick, thank you. Thank you. Members, if you have any comments, then please raise your hand. No hands have been raised, therefore the minutes are approved. Civic engagements update, agenda item 3. For information, you'll find at pages 9 to 10 of the agenda pack a list of the civic engagements the Vice Chairman and I have attended in the weeks preceding full council. Agenda item 4, to receive any announcements from the Chairman of the Council and or the Head of Paid Service. Unfortunately, I must begin my announcements today with the sad news about the recent passing of former councillor Kathleen Brennan. Kathleen represented the Wisbech North Ward on Fenland District Council from May 1987 to April 1991. As a member of Fenland District Council, Kathleen sat on the Housing and Health Committee, Finance Subcommittee, Policy and Resources Committee, and the Recreation and Public Works Committee. I'd like to offer the council sincere condolences to Kathleen's friends and loved ones at this very sad time. And if you're able to stand, I'd ask you to join me in a minute's silence to commemorate her life. Thank you very much. To continue with this agenda item, on a lighter note, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who attended my civic reception, which took place on the 6th of September. It was a successful and enjoyable evening, and I'd also like to give my thanks to member services for their support in organising it. I shall also be hosting a coffee morning here in the chamber from 10 a.m. on the 17th of October in aid of Damsons, the community group for people living with dementia and their carers. And the civic carol service will be taking place from 6 p.m. on the 6th of December 2024 at St Peter and St Paul's Parish Church in Wisbech. I'd like to welcome your attendance at both of these events and look forward to seeing as many of you as possible. I will now hand over to the Chief Executive for his announcement.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm delighted to announce that the Council has once again been re-accredited for Customer Service Excellence, CSE. CSE is a national standard that recognises public bodies that provide customer-focused, high-quality services. Fenland is one of the few councils that have consistently achieved this rigorous standard for all its services. Following an assessment in June, the CSE assessor stated that Fenland continues to demonstrate how they put residents at the heart of service delivery, with examples of reduced council tax and the introduction of new services such as the Early Help Hub. The continued transformation project has added further channels, and traditional channels have also been enhanced, ensuring access for the elderly, vulnerable, or people who do not have digital access. The assessor also praised the council, saying the use of staff insight into delivering excellent services was already at a high level in 2023. However, staff insight has increased further through empowering the 3 Cs, compliments, complaints, and comments team. The assessor noted further, the number and range of partner organisations is constantly increasing to meet the needs of a diverse community, including areas of deprivation, with the council increasing their interaction and wider communities. So with all of that in mind, please can Councillor Steve Tierney, Portfolio Holder for Transformation and Communications, come forward to receive the CSE re-accreditation certificate from the Chairman of the Council.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for that. I think I'm proud to be the portfolio holder for this area of the council's business because we've got such a strong team of officers working so hard to deliver for the people of Fenland, and it is to them that we all should owe a great deal of thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations, Steve. Agenda item 5, declarations of interest. Any declaration of interest under the local code of conduct or any interest under the code of conduct on planning matters in respect of any items to be discussed at this meeting. If you have anything to declare, please can you raise your hand? Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. Agenda item 9, as a recipient of the Winter Fuel Allowance, I will not take part in the discussion or the vote.
Thank you. Could you all put your hands up again so we can record the names, please?
Sure.
Is that it? Got more? Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Anybody else got any declarations for any other item? Councillor Hicks?
It's number 13. I'm sitting on the planning committee. I don't think it's right and proper to be commenting on a particular matter.
Thank you. Sorry, agenda item 6, to receive questions from and provide answers to councillors in relation to matters which, in the opinion of the chairman, accord with the provisions of Procedure Rules 8.4 and 8.6. There have been no written questions submitted in accordance with Rule 8.6, and we will therefore proceed straight to questions under Rule 8.4. Councillor Booth, you may now ask questions of the leader within the allotted time limit of 20 minutes, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Got one question really to ask. It's just follow up to the discussion we had at last month or the last meeting regarding the Wisbech incinerator. In fact, we were going to write to Secretary of State regarding that. Could you confirm if we've had, because obviously this is an important matter and we need to set this straight for a public record, have we had any responses to the letter that was sent on behalf of all councillors? And if not, when are we going to chase up to get an appropriate response?
Thank you, Councillor Booth, for your question. As with all these questions, it really helps to get a little bit of notice because, especially when it's something like this, I do rely on the officers, and it's possible that an officer has received something. So with your permission, Councillor Booth, I'm just going to look around just to make sure that no one has received a letter back. I don't believe anyone has. In relation to the Wisbech incinerator from the Secretary of State. No. So to the best of my knowledge, we haven't received any response, but I think you're quite correct. It's worth our while writing a chaser to find out what the Secretary of State's got to say. So I'll ask officers to do that. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Yeah, I suspected that was the case, so I probably should have pre-warned you on that. But yeah, I think it is important. I realise that they've probably got quite a lot of correspondence at the moment, but obviously this is a matter very important to residents of Fenland. So thank you.
I agree it's a matter of great importance to residents in Fenland, but government ministers are there to do a job, and they certainly shouldn't claim that they're too overworked to respond to requests from residents in Fenland.
Have you any more questions, Councillor Booth? Thank you. Item 7, to receive reports from and ask questions of Cabinet members with portfolio holder responsibilities in accordance with Procedure Rules 8.1 and 8.2, which is on pages 11 to 62 in the pack. Procedure Rules 8.2 permits questions to Cabinet members about any matter which falls within their portfolio responsibilities, and members are reminded that there is a total time allocation of 1 hour for this item. Can I ask if anybody has a question for any of the Cabinet members, please? Councillor Rackley. Councillor Rackley, could you put your microphone on, please?
Sorry. Question for Councillor Hoy. I keep hearing that the taxi tariff has gone up, and I'm confused because having been a taxi driver for many years, I know Fenland District Council don't set actual fees charged, only the maximum tariff. Could you tell me who is lying to the public about this and why?
Councillor Hoy, please.
Yeah, thank you. I won't want to get into a discussion about anyone's motivations at a council meeting because you can never, ever understand people's motivations. I'm not sure they even understand them themselves all the time. So I shan't do that. But yes, you're right. We don't set, so we set the maximum amount that's allowed to be charged to Hackney carriage drivers. They can charge less than that. A number of companies do. Obviously, the licensing committee did consider the tariffs some time ago now and set them. They went out for consultation, and that came back to Cabinet today. About an hour before the Cabinet meeting, Councillor Patrick submitted a wad of responses from taxi drivers that claim they don't support a rise. I have had no way to verify that because obviously with an hour's notice, there's no way I could have verified any badge numbers or anything like that. So it's going to be deferred until the next Cabinet meeting. So currently the rise won't be taking place, which is a disappointment because obviously you know, I've got no skin in the game. I know I've heard some things online saying, oh, well, you know, you're against Hackney carriage drivers, you just support private hire. But actually, Hackney carriage drivers are suffering after today's decision because they still can't raise their fares and private hire can. So actually, Hackney carriage drivers are suffering as a result of today's cabinet decision, in my view. But we are where we are. So I have taken what Cabinet's decision was today is that they will defer it to the next Cabinet meeting, or, you know, as soon as the soonest Cabinet meeting we can get to allow me to write to the drivers myself, and actually obviously officers will help facilitate that process to make sure we actually put the facts down as well in the letter. And get a proper response, because some of the things that were signed in the letter were, you know, were not completely, I don't feel completely accurate, because some of the figures that are being bandied around, for example, people keep saying 50%. You have to be doing over a 30-mile journey to be getting a 50% rise. So, you know, it's really important that we're putting out the important factual information. And I do stress that the drivers can charge up to that amount. They don't have to.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rackley, you want a follow-up question?
Oh, that's cleared up for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Patrick.
First of all, I'd just like to raise a point of order and actually ask whether the member or the councillor Rackley is still a licensed holder for Hackney Carriage, and if so, should he have declared an interest?
Right. Councillor Patrick, in answer to that question, because we're not making a decision about taxi tariffs today, then Councillor Rackley's position, whether he is or is not a taxi driver, is irrelevant to today's meeting. Thank you. Councillor Patrick.
In that case, I would just like to make a statement, because having been accused of being a liar at an earlier meeting.
Councillor Patrick, it's questions to portfolio holders. Is it a question?
Okay, it's a question. I'll answer it as a question. The portfolio holder says that it's not a 50% rise, and she is also slightly inaccurate, because it may not be a 50% rise on the first mile travelled by a taxi, but after that, £2.20, £3.30, that's definitely 50%. That's maths at the end of the day.
Would you like to answer that, Councillor Hoy, please?
Yes, that is incorrect. You have been sent it many times. So on a 2-mile journey, it's about 20% rise. On a 3-mile journey, it's about 30% rise. It's worked out in certain amount of calculations. And it's not as simple as just saying X plus X equals Y. They are much more, it's a much more complicated system than that. And I want to keep stressing it is a maximum amount that you can charge, and it only applies to Hackney drivers. So it's a maximum amount. So all of this is 50%. That is only if you're doing more than 30 miles and you choose to charge the meter price. You could charge, definitely, if you wanted to, you could charge someone 50p if you wanted to. Obviously you wouldn't, but you could, theoretically could.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Does anybody have any more questions for members of the Cabinet, please? Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Chairman. It's just in relation to the target for processing of housing benefit applications. The point is on page 13. It's a question for Councillor French. The figures quoted there, I think from memory, are probably the highest in number of days to process the applications. I know it says they're going to turn it around and hopefully get it processed in a few weeks. But when we've been over before, it has taken us months. So what confidence have we got of that? And can members have a regular update? Because obviously we only get these updates every meeting, which is roughly every 2 months. So can we get a monthly update to show us how we're going to improve to hit the sort of target for the housing benefits? I understand it's all as a result of the universal credit being introduced and it affecting the data and everything. But at the end of the day, people are waiting on these applications to be processed. So I just want to get reassurance that we will get on top of this once the systems are sort of up and ready. And obviously, I take on board what comments it says on page 13.
Please.
Thank you, Councillor Booth. Yes, We have had quite a few changes in management at ERP. They are catching up, but obviously, you know, the amount of benefits go through. There is a list on portfolio holder, how many we're doing. I don't get a monthly update, but I can request. I will speak to the officers, and if that's possible, yes, because we only meet every 3 months.
Okay, thank you very
Thank you,
much. It's
Councillor
just, I
Flynn.
feel it's
Councillor
quite,
Booth?
yeah, it's just, I feel it's quite important. We do need to keep on top of it. So that would be useful. Thank you.
Thank you. Has anybody got any more questions for members of Cabinet, please? No, thank you. Move on to item number 8, a motion submitted by Councillor Taylor concerning meat labelling. Item 8 is a motion on notice from Councillor Tim Taylor and which appears at pages 63 and 64 of the agenda pack. Councillor Taylor, would you like to move your motion? You have 5 minutes to present the motion and say anything you wish about it. Your next opportunity to speak will be when summing up. Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. I've got over 2.5 years worth of work here to compact into 5 minutes, so I'm going to try and fly through some of it. But before I start, I want to reiterate that this motion is not about religion. It's purely about animal welfare, and most importantly, consumer choice and truths. Now, there's more and more animals being slaughtered in religious ways than we could ever comprehend. To make matters worse, us the consumers are being sold meat products that have been slaughtered this way, as there is no requirement by government to have these meat products labelled as slaughtered in this way. Each and every one of us is being blatantly lied to regarding our purchase. Every food outlet, supermarket, butchers, etc. have a legal right to know their supply source, but they don't have to inform you unless you ask. Although abattoir codes have to be on the packaging, but if you don't have the list of codes, you will never know whether that abattoir is RS or not. And yes, I am in possession of every code for the UK. A huge percentage of meat products in outlets is slaughtered in a ritual manner, but there is no label or identification to show this. Every consumer is being misled, including the Muslim and Jewish community. If the meat product has no identification stating that the product has been slaughtered to halal or kosher rulings, then that consumer is simply not going to purchase it. Again, this is misleading the consumer for which this type of product is actually produced for. Now, I was actually talking to our own councillor Nawaz the other night and actually produced a picture of a pre-packed chicken on a supermarket shelf. And he actually looked and said, I wouldn't purchase that. That is not halal. Well, the actual slaughterhouse code states that is 100% halal. So we need consumer choices and need it labelling correctly. You don't go and purchase a new car without having the option of knowing what fuel type is in it. It's called consumer choice. Now, I've sent many emails out to supermarkets, food outlets, shops and all sorts, and I've got several responses, but I say I've only got 5 minutes. So to all non-Muslims, any animal which is slaughtered by a Muslim having the recoverable stun and facing Mecca is halal, even if it's not received the blessing. We are all being downrightly lied to. Now, don't be put off thinking it's a racist question to ask your outlet, is your food religious slaughtered or not? There is a law covering this. And under Article 18 of the regulation, the EC number 178/2002, food businesses are required to identify their suppliers of food producing animals and other substances and intended or expected to be incorporated into foods. So first of all, what is halal? A lot of us have heard that one. So halal basically, how is halal meat prepared? The animal goes into the kill pen, it's recited by a blessing, and then its throat slit and left to die. naturally. Only one animal can be ritually slaughtered at a time, and other animals must not witness any other death. Some animals killed for halal meat in the UK are stunned electrically before their throats are slit, known as pre-stun slaughter. Now, the British HFA approves of a low voltage slaughter stun, which is 100% recoverable. Normally, within about 30 seconds, the animal is awake again. But however, it is forbidden to use methods of stunning that can actually kill the animal, such as captive bolts. Animals not killed by ritual slaughter are considered carrion meat, which is haram, which is not fit for Muslim purposes. Then we go on to one that a lot of people don't hear a lot about, and that is kosher slaughter. Now, kosher, I want to find it in all this file in here. Oh, there we go. So kosher is the meat that is intended for the Jewish community. But they are prohibited from having any blood whatsoever in their diet. They consume a lot of beef. So how are they slaughtered? Cows enter the kill box and their throat is literally just slit there and then. Zero stunning, nothing. And up to 4.5 minutes for a cow to die and watch it gasping and fighting for its last gasp of air. But as no blood is permitted in their diet, they only eat the fore end down to the 10th rib. So all the best bits, the joints, the steaks, etc., are in the rear end. But they can't consume that as there's more veins, etc., in the back end than there is in the fore end. So this meat from the back end's got to end up somewhere. But I've never seen any meat labelled as kosher. In fact, I tried to put a meeting together with a rabbi, and once I got there, he'd refused point blank to speak. They seem to work underground a little bit, as there is no labelling requirements for kosher products.
Councillor Taylor, can you actually bring your motion to council, please? You've had more than your time, actually.
Already? Right, okay.
Very interesting.
So, council notes that it is legal in the UK for animals to be slaughtered for food in accordance with halal or kosher religious practices. Some people believe that religious slaughter involves unnecessary pain to the animals as they are being killed. That meat product in accordance with religious slaughter requirements is not necessarily so labelled through the meat trade and when sold on to customers. That some people prefer on moral grounds not to eat meat produce in accordance with religious slaughter practices. But the abattoir codes on meat required by law for traceability mean that all involved in the meat trade, other than the consumer, know where their meat has and has not come from. So council believes that the sale of appropriately labelled halal or kosher meat properly fulfils a religious need for significant minorities nationally. That the moral beliefs of those who oppose religious slaughter should also be catered for, but without in any way prejudicing the aforementioned minorities' religious requirements. Consumer choice will be better served if those who object to the eating religiously slaughtered meat were to have the opportunity to know that the meat being sold had not been religiously slaughtered. The council therefore resolved to support and promote the voluntary labelling of meat which has not been religiously slaughtered. This motion to be sent to the Secretary of State for DEFRA, our MP, the NFU, the Countryside Alliance, Pro Farmers United and the Food Standards Agency. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Do I have a seconder for this motion, please? Councillor Imafidon. You can reserve the right to speak at the end of the debate or at the time of seconding the motion. Would you like to speak now or reserve the right?
I reserve the right, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. The item is open for discussion and members are reminded that they're able to speak only once on this motion. Thank you. Councillor Booth and then Councillor Carney. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I have no issue with voluntary labelling. One of the points I was going to raise was that this motion doesn't talk about Food Standards Agency, which is the body that you probably really need to speak to. But I do wonder why this motion's come before this council, because the amount of influence we have in this area is next to nothing, I would have said. If we're writing to Food Standards Agency, at least it's probably going to the right body now. And I have to say, as a councillor, I don't think I've ever been approached by this issue. Now, I understand the point that Councillor Taylor said about, you know, it's an unknown issue. But I do recall that I put in a motion several years ago about trying to support WASPy women and trying to get payment for their pensions. And I was told that it wasn't the business of this council, and it was voted down and rejected. So I just remind councillors of that. It does seem to be that, you know, one rule for one, another rule for others. I don't object to this motion, but what I would say is that the motion be now put and we vote on it, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Booth. Councillor Carney?
Thank you. I would support this motion based on the fact that the consumer choice is very much the pertinent part of it. In fact, even though Councillor Booth said it's not necessarily a council matter, but I think what does actually matter is the fact that consumer choice affects every single one of us and beyond. In fact, I'm quite surprised that the non-labelling has not occurred anyway. Halal kosher meat is labelled as such, even non-meat products are labelled as halal kosher, particularly kosher. But the point is that, you know, when you think there are certain food production practices where they have to go by certain production methods, and if you want to go down the route of actual labelling, things like the red tractor logo, sometimes it can stand for something, but the discerning consumer will look to see the provenance of their food products. That includes meat. So I think actually this is one small step towards sort of actually getting some sort of voluntary scheme underway. I don't know how soon it will happen, but I think ultimately, it's like everything else in consumer society, it's going to come down to cost. Because if abattoirs are then sort of obliged to sort of, or the retailers are expected to sort of label their meat products of whatever, whether it's halal, kosher, or non-halal, non-kosher, is it going to put an on cost? Is that then going to be something they use as an excuse to put up the price of their products? And ultimately, it comes down to price. However, as I said before, to a lot of people out there, you know, cost isn't the issue, it's the moral thing. Where does my food come from? And is it somewhere where I can actually trust? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tierney, did you want to speak?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Some of you know I also sit on County Council, and one of the things that the administration there has often done is bring a motion to council that's nothing to do with the business of council when it's a pop at the government, or they used to back when it was a Conservative government. They're much quieter now, I notice, but it always does annoy me a little bit, because if you're just virtue signalling, if you're making a motion about something that is none of your business. And so I have a lot of sympathy with what Councillor Booth said. I would suggest this is slightly different. And the reason I think it's slightly different, not absolutely different, but slightly different, is because these businesses that are in charge of labelling or telling their distributors and suppliers what to label, they do listen to what local authorities say. We will have some effect on what they decide. And whilst I don't know the accuracy of everything that has been brought in this motion, because I've not studied it, I've no reason to think it's wrong, I do absolutely approve of customer choice. I think people should know what they're buying. It's quite correct for consumers to be able to see, so they can make a fair decision about what they want to buy. And I say that without any decision about what the correct thing to buy is. That's up to each individual to decide. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, just a point of clarification, and I just ought to make it clear for the public record, I work at a retail distribution centre, but have nothing to do with meat processing. It just passes through, but obviously there will be products, they may be halal, they may be kosher, I don't know. So just put that on the record. But the point I was making was about the WASPy thing, I was asked by a group of local residents that were affected by it, and there were several thousand residents that were affected in Finland alone, and I was told at that meeting that it wasn't a matter for this council to discuss.
Thank you, Councillor Booth, and thank you for your clarification. Does anybody else wish to join in on this debate, please? Councillor Imafidon, would you like to exercise your right to speak now?
I have nothing to add, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. In that case, we will move, oh, sorry, councillor Taylor. Would you like to sum up, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I did say it was 2.5 years' work. I've got to try and fit into 5 minutes. But actually, there's one piece here that is halal and kosher criminal law. The FSA do state that everything should be labelled correctly from its origin. So I'm hoping people will support the motion. And if they do, then I've really got the next lot of work starts in front of me now. Yes, we're dealing with MPs, the FSA. We need to make a difference on this. But to answer the Councillor Booth's question, I believe that reasons like this is now coming through the Farming Committee, which obviously is a part of Fenland now, and we look after the farmers nationally, not just in Fenland. Farmer here is exactly the same as what they are up in Northumbria. We're all in the same industry. We all face the same problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you, councillor Taylor. We will now move to the vote. Can you keep your hands held up while member services count you, please? So all those in favour of the motion, can you please show now, please? Sorry, all those against the motion, can you show now, please? There are none. And any abstentions, please? Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you. You can put your hands down. Thank you. I now call upon member services to announce the outcome, please.
24 votes in favour, Chairman. And 80% abstentions.
The motion is carried. Thank you. Agenda item number 9 is a motion submitted by councillor Christie concerning changes to the winter fuel allowance. This motion appears at pages 65 to 68 of the agenda pack. While it was intended that this should be a motion on notice, as a technicality, it was not possible to accept it as such because it was received 13 minutes out of time. I have therefore been asked, in accordance with paragraph 11.1M of standing orders, to propose that procedure rule 10.1, which requires that motions are received by 12 noon, to be suspended. Is this agreed? No dissent. Thank you. Further, as it has been unavoidably necessary for councillor Christie to give his apologies today, he has, in accordance with paragraph 10.4 of the procedure rules, nominated councillor Hoy to move the motion in his place. Councillor Hoy, would you like to move the motion, please? You have 5 minutes to present the motion and say anything you wish about it. Your next opportunity to speak will be when summing up.
Thank you very much. So Councillor Christie asked me to propose this motion, and what he asked me to say on his behalf was as follows. As a local councillor and charity trustee, I am particularly concerned about pensioners who will narrowly miss out on this payment. The announcement to end the winter fuel payment for those not receiving pension credit risks driving thousands of older people in Fenland into further financial hardship. This means thousands of older people having to skip meals and not use their heating, living with extreme anxiety about how they'll make ends meet. At the Charity Befriending and Social Living Room group, the members are telling us how they could not sleep after hearing about the changes to winter fuel payments, which they have described as a criminal blow. Like a lot of people on low incomes, they're having to juggle every single penny and rely on this money coming in, especially this year. Those most affected are people who find themselves just above the threshold eligible for pension credit and who won't be eligible for the winter fuel payment, but for whom £300 each winter would make a huge difference. These are people who have worked hard for most of their lives, often in low-paid jobs or self-employed, and who rely on modest pensions. In Fenland, nearly 90% of people that qualify for the winter fuel payment in 22-23 will no longer be eligible under the new plans. The decision to make this means tested is the wrong one at the wrong time. Many older people will have financial security and say they don't need it, but there are also many older people who do, and the majority of those who need it are in our rural communities. And if you'll indulge me, I'd like to kind of add my own little bit to this as well, because I'm actually really pleased that I, as a person under 40, am presenting this and hopefully being seconded by another person under 40. And the reason being is because I've actually read quite a lot of things online from other people that aren't pensioners. That actually sounds quite, I think, nasty, jealous, envious, saying things like, oh, well, you know, I only rent now and they're all living in, you know, a big house that they bought and it's not fair. Now, I don't like that because it's not their fault. Like, yeah, okay, first of all, it's not even true because times were much harder. Like, you didn't have an outside toilet. I mean, I can't imagine how to go outside in freezing cold to a toilet. So, yeah, okay, you might have been able to buy a house, but buy a house with an outside toilet sounds kind of rubbish. I think, you know, I'm making light of it, but I think the point I'm making is, you know, it's very easy to look at something with rose-tinted glasses and think someone had everything perfect. It's not fair, and that's just the wrong way to look at things. I also think that it's making a massive generalisation. I think people sometimes, because they perhaps have got a grandparent or a parent, or perhaps even people in this room think, I don't need it, you know, I personally can do without it, and so it's probably not a problem because we do need to make savings. But just because some of us are okay, not everybody is. There are so many people out there that are struggling, so many elderly people, and a lot of people that are from a generation that were got on and were self-reliant. They don't want to go and ask the state for money. They've perhaps never asked in their entire lives. So to go and ask someone for benefits is probably something that they just don't ever want to do. And I just want to briefly talk about a gentleman, obviously I won't name him, but a gentleman that we met when we were doing shopping for in COVID. And he's one of the people that I imagine is just above the allowance to get pension credit, so he won't get winter fuel allowance. And I remember when we'd go and see him every week and he'd give us £30, which was his disposable income. And with that £30, he asked us to pay £5 for his mobile phone top up, £5 for his electric, £10 for his gas meter, and then with the remaining £10 was his food shopping. And out of that, we had to buy, I remember, because we went to Heron Foods and he used to have these little pots of instant mash because they were sort of 49p and he could buy a lot of those. And I remember at the time thinking how lucky that so many of us are, that we aren't living in that situation. And I think what frustrates me most about governments, and this isn't just an attack on the Labour Party, although the fact that they're doing this while claiming millions of pounds in clothing donations is absolutely disgusting. Governments, I think so many people that make the decisions, they've never been in that situation. They've never been on the breadline. They've never been struggling with the gas meter on the emergency and having to, you know, scrape a few pounds together. And because of that, they find it so easy to make these decisions. And I think it's absolutely disgusting. So hopefully we'll have a lot of support for this motion today.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Do I have a seconder for the proposal? Councillor Booth? Thank you. You can reserve the right to speak at the end of the debate or at the time of the seconding the motion. Do you wish to speak now, Councillor Booth?
I'll reserve my right.
Thank you. The item is open for discussion. Members are reminded that they are able to speak only once on the motion. So would anybody like to start the discussion, please? Councillor Tierney.
Might as well get me out of the way. Thank you, Chairman. I don't understand why the government did this. And I'm interested in politics and all sides of politics, and I like to watch it, and I like to think, what is the strategy here? What's the thinking? What's the policy? And I don't get it, because this is obviously such a bad decision, and everybody thinks so. And if you talk to Labour Party supporters, some of them ex-Labour Party supporters, they will also tell you they don't get it. What are they thinking? What is going through the brains of the people who took a decision to harm the most vulnerable people, some of the most vulnerable people, straight away. I mean, they made all these promises during the election for all these things they were going to do, and they were going to do away with tuition fees and all the other things they were going to do. They seem to be reversing everything, whilst, as was pointed out earlier, taking all these donations. It's hard to tie all these things together, because I think a lot of political parties do some of these things, but I don't understand the thinking of a Labour Party who clearly had choices here. They were telling us all it was easy to raise the money because they would just tax the rich. They would go after big corporations. Where are they doing that? The first thing they did was come in and take money from old people who haven't got enough money to heat their house. It makes no sense. I don't understand the thinking of it at all. And if anybody here has any insight into the thinking, please share it with me, because this one, I just don't get what they were thinking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Councillor Carney, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Probably some of you, I know that some of you in this room have seen me in action at my day job, and just recently I've attended the Golden Age fairs at Titchard and at Eastwood. And on both those occasions, talking to the various different agencies who are there supporting older people, it's all point of them. And the point is that they've all said to me, we are expecting the avalanche, if not, it's already started, of actually trying to help those people who, as Councillor Hoy correctly mentioned, are just above that threshold. Okay, I myself have come across 2 people on my day visits where they've said that they are only literally £20 above the threshold, and it really is a case of, do I eat or do I heat? Okay. Dr. Nick Johnson, now the Mayor, Labour Mayor of the Combined Authority, his 3 C's, compassion, community and cooperation. Well, compassion, as far as I'm concerned, gone out the window. Okay, how can it be compassionate that you, as Councillor Tierney said, okay, so the most vulnerable people in our communities, not just here, across the whole country, how can they be put to this? Okay, there is ways around it. Again, one of the things that the agencies have told me, housing providers have told me that they're already started to do this with some of the poorer tenants, and I use that expression, poorer tenants. They said the way to get around it, if you're not already on, get onto pension credit. Even if you're only eligible for something like £10 a week, that opens a door to make sure that you get your winter fuel allowance. And in some ways, I don't know who did the maths behind this in central government, but the fact of the matter is there's going to be millions of people across the country who are going to go onto pension credit and eligible for it, and therefore become eligible for the winter fuel allowance. I just think it's going to end up being a massive own goal for the government. But the point is, at this point in time, there's a lot of people out there who are very worried about it. And in fact, as one gentleman said to me, and I've already said, he said, I'm worried. Do I eat or do I heat? Where's the compassion in that? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carney. Councillor Laws, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to confirm everything that's been said. As you know, I've been a town councillor for nearly 40 years, and my door is always open. A lot of people know me in Whittlesea, and I've had several widows in particular that actually have been in tears in my kitchen over a cup of coffee. And they consider that going for benefits, they're actually scrounging on the state. They've never had to claim anything in their life. They've kept their head above water, and they feel embarrassed to actually go forward with that. My recommendation has been to go to the Citizens' Advice, who will guide them through this, but I understand that the Citizens' Advice is absolutely inundated. Their appointment list is full. And I think, like you say, where is the compassion? I have no idea why they wish to attack the vulnerable and the elderly. And as we say, there are probably many that actually don't require the fuel allowance, but I think the greater portion do require it. And I think this is such an injustice, and we have to lobby very hard. I know when it's not my political party, are they going to listen to us? And I'm frightened to say, I think the next thing that could go would be single occupancy of properties. And if that happens as well, I think I'll see even more people knocking on my door. You know, they've tried to maintain their properties. They've tried to keep their head above water. But as you say, it's going to be a case, are they going to heat their properties? Are they going to eat properly? You know, all these combinations, they are so cost conscious now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, councillor Laws. Councillor Taylor, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So, because of the motion, what I've got in today, I've actually got a very, very large following on social media, actually recording live off your YouTube channel. And the messages have just gone off saying, Tim, get involved with this. Is there any way that within Fenland, we can find the pensioners that are under that threshold? Because the new farming group, what has been set up, called Pro Farming United, which is a group of farmers covering England and Wales for a new group, I've just said, let's get wonky boxes of veg put together and distribute every week to the people who are under the threshold. So if we can find that, the local farmers are going to start and dig deep and distribute out to the people who are under the threshold. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Miscandlin.
Thank you, Chairman. Slightly different. The people that are claiming, if they go to the citizen advice, and we've been told this by their advisors, if you can get credits for 50 pence, you then qualify. Over the threshold. Oh, you're over the threshold. 50 pence. So I would encourage everyone to speak to the city. You don't have to go there. You can speak to them on the phone. But on the other ground, the Labour aren't listening. They aren't listening to their own members. At the conference, which was still going on or just finished, the unions actually told them, you've made a mistake. Go back and have another look at it. And what's their answer? No, we're going ahead with it. So people in Fenland and other areas are going to suffer because of their gross negligence for the elderly people of this country that have paid tax on their incomes for the past 50 years. And I know because I'm one of them. And probably the oldest person in this room, but that's beside the point. So it is essential that the pensioners go to citizens' advice, talk to them on the phone, because if you can get 50p, you can get your fuel allowance back. And by the way, they've already paid the fuel allowance to people who are living in Spain, Italy, Cyprus, and other areas. And my brother, who lives in Australia, in Perth in Australia, remember, they're just coming to their summer, he's received a letter saying that he's entitled to claim it. They're going to be suffering in 40 degrees, and you can have a winter fuel allowance. Where's the sense in it? There isn't any. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to join in this debate? Councillor Fierce, Voice Beard, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a quick one really to say that these changes are disappointing. No, they're actually appalling. It's appalling, but I'd just like to say thank you to Councillor Hoy for bringing this motion to full council. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? In which case, Councillor Booth, would you like to exercise your right to speak?
Yes, Chairman. Yes, I support the majority of what's been said by people. What I would say is I think we need to also thank Councillor Christie because he's the one that actually drafted this motion. Just comment to Councillor Taylor. I think those food boxes are probably more needed by the people just above the threshold universal credit because they're the ones that are going to lose the allowance. So if you're below it, you still continue to receive it. So yeah, just to clarify that. I think this is a rushed policy, probably try and grab some headlines. It's gone down very poorly, and probably at the moment the government doesn't want to seem to back down for some reason. I think it's a hammer to crack a nut. I think they probably looked at it. There may be an argument to say that you know, not everyone receives it. You do hear some stories, I say some, of people that say they don't need it because they're well off, and you know they you know it's probably the exception rather than the rule. They appear on the news channels to say, you know, I don't need it, and then they've got a story of someone that actually really does desperately need it. So they've rushed this through. They should have taken more time. The limit is far too low. It's going to disproportionately affect the residents of Fenland, and I think we need to really badger the government. And I think the more that councils do this and the more pressure from everywhere, the budget's only around the corner. You never know, they might back down. Fingers crossed. And just one other point. Point was raised by Councillor Hoy about the donations. Well, it's not just the Labour Party that suffered from that. The previous government actually got rid of the ministerial code for declaring donations. So we don't know how bad it was under the Conservatives, but from what's said in the media, it was quite bad as well. So I think when you get to a certain level as politicians, it affects you all. As I say, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. Unfortunately, I think the government really does need to listen to people, reconsider, and basically make sure that it's not going to disproportionately affect the most vulnerable in society. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Booth. Councillor Hoy, would you like to sum up, please?
Yes, thank you. So just dealing with the politics first, Councillor Booth is right. I did say that I wasn't massively happy with any political party at national government sometimes and the decisions they made. But power doesn't always corrupt just at national level, because at local level, people often are happy to do deals with anyone that's going, so they can form administrations and get posts on various committees. So, you know, it's kind of out there wherever you kind of look. Yes, of course, thank you to Councillor Christie. He should be here today, you know, giving this motion. It was a really, really well put together motion. You know, I'm not taking any credit for that. All the work is his, but I'm just happy to be standing up today, as I would anyway, because I do think it's a completely, and I think that word, you know, criminal policy is absolutely disgusting. There are people that are going to die as a result of this policy. Let's be clear about that. Some people that are very elderly, that really need the heating, and are not going to be able to afford to put the heating on this winter, are going to pass away, and people should be ashamed of themselves in government. It's absolutely disgusting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. We'll now move to the vote. When you vote, can you please keep your hands up until member services have counted you? All those in favour, could you please raise your hand, please?
We have a recorded vote,
Yeah, for a recorded vote, we need 6 people to stand up, please. 2, yeah, we got 6, yeah.
Chairman, point of order, just to clarify that the people that declared an interest probably shouldn't be voting, should they?
Thank you. I've been advised that if the people who declared an interest still believe they have an open mind on this issue, they can vote. If they think they're already predetermined, then they shouldn't vote. And there were sufficient people to make this a recorded vote.
Chairman, yes, just to clarify though, this is financial, so therefore it's pecuniary, and if those people are receiving the benefits, I think that's why they've declared that it's they've got an interest, because they are receiving a financial.
Thank you. I'll ask.
So it's some really good points, Councillor Booth. I think we're not the decision maker on this issue. So interests aren't engaged directly. This is similar to when you vote on council tax, where members obviously don't have to declare an interest, but as long as everyone has an open mind and they're not predetermined on the issue, then I believe today everyone can take a vote, and we have recorded those who declared an interest at the start of the debate.
Thank you for that. So we have sufficient people stood, so we can have a recorded vote. I will now ask member services to be ready for that. So can you keep your hands in the air when you vote, please? All those in favour of the motion, can you please show now? Beg your pardon, Chris. Thank you. Member services. Beg your pardon. Member services will now read the names out, and if you could answer member services with the way you wish to vote, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Benny.
Sorry. Yes.
Councillor Bowden.
For.
Councillor Booth.
For.
Councillor Carney.
For.
Councillor John Clark. Councillor Sam Clark. Councillor Connor.
4.
Councillor Cutler,
4.
Councillor Mrs Davis,
4.
Councillor Foyce-Beard,
4.
Councillor Mrs French,
4.
Councillor Gershner,
No vote.
Councillor Gill,
4.
Councillor Gowler,
4.
Councillor Hick,
4.
Councillor Hoy, Councillor Humphrey, Councillor Maffeden,
4.
Councillor Mrs Laws,
4.
Councillor Meekins,
4.
Councillor Scanlon,
4.
Councillor Murphy,
4.
Councillor Oliver,
4.
Councillor Patrick,
No vote.
Councillor Purser,
4.
Councillor Rackley,
4.
Councillor Roy,
4.
Councillor Seaton,
4.
Councillor Summers,
4.
Councillor Taylor,
4.
Councillor Tierney,
4.
Councillor Warwork,
4.
4.
Just give me a moment, Chairman.
Now ask member services to reveal the voting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. That's 30 votes for, 3 abstentions and none against.
Thank you. That motion is carried. Agenda item 10, overview and scrutiny annual report, which is on pages 69 to 78 of the agenda pack. I now call upon Councillor Mrs Davis as Chairman of Overview and Scrutiny to present this report. You may remain seated if you like, Councillor. Thank you.
Sorry, I'll start again because I didn't have my mic on. It's a legal requirement for each local authority to set up a scrutiny process as a function of the council. Fenland District Council currently has a single overview and scrutiny panel, and the functions for which it is responsible are set out in Procedure Rule 5 of the Constitution. As a matter of good governance and in the delivery of my role as chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Panel, it is my pleasure to present the annual report for 2023-24. I would first like to take the opportunity to thank members of the panel for their time and contributions to the work programme over the term of their appointments, and in particular for the purpose of this report during the last municipal year. The Overview and Scrutiny Panel has an important role to play in overseeing the performance and delivery of services. This year, the panel has again had the benefit of receiving a variety of reports from internal and external colleagues across a broad range of service areas pertaining to the Council's core priorities. The cross-party task and finish group established in the last municipal year also successfully concluded its review into the Council's corporate performance indicators, making recommendations which were ultimately incorporated into the approved business plan. The panel will continue to keep these changes under review as part of its annual oversight. In the coming year, the panel has and will continue to receive regular performance updates to ensure that services perform well. The future work programme will be published with the agenda for each meeting and will focus on issues that are of paramount importance to local residents and businesses. Business will include updates on the Council's performance against corporate priorities, as well as scrutiny of external organisations such as Clarion, Anglian Water, and the regional representatives for the Arts Council. I'm confident that the panel will utilise its ongoing knowledge and expertise to maintain the high standards expected of it in performing its functions, and look forward to reporting these again next year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Woolard. Would you like to exercise your right to speak now or reserve your right to do so at the conclusion of the debate?
I'll reserve the right. Thank you.
Thank you. The item is now open for debate. Remember, you're only allowed to speak on the item once. Would anybody like to start the debate, please? Councillor Miscandlin.
Thank you, Chairman. Being a past chairman of the overview and scrutiny, I appreciate the amount of work they do and the amount of effort that's put in by all members of that panel, and I fully support them.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak? No. In that case, Councillor Woolard, would you like to exercise your reserved right to speak?
Nothing further to add to the summing up. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Davis, would you like to sum up, please?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, members. The recommendation is at page 69 of the agenda pack and is for full council to acknowledge the broad scope of work undertaken by the overview and scrutiny panel during 2023-24. Is that duly noted? Thank you. Agenda item 11 is the Audit and Risk Management Committee Annual Report for 2023-24. This appears at pages 79 to 88 of the agenda pack. I now call upon Councillor Booth as a nominated representative of the Audit and Risk Management Committee to present the report. Councillor Booth, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as you say, I'm presenting this on behalf of Councillor Kim French and Gary Christie, Chair and Vice Chair of the Audit Committee, as they're unable to attend. So this is the annual presentation report of the Audit and Risk Management Committee, which is there to inform the Council of the duties and activities undertaken by the committee, which acts as effectively the Audit Committee for the Council. Purpose of the committee, as set out in the terms of reference, is to provide independent review and oversight of Fenton District Council's governance, risk management and internal control frameworks, oversee the financial reporting and annual governance processes. The annual report seeks to demonstrate how the committee has discharged these responsibilities. It details what we have been presented with and reviewed by the committee. It shows the attendance of committee members at the 5 meetings during the year, and it also shows the areas of work that's been covered throughout the year and the findings for each. And these include the annual governance statement for 22-23, which reviews the assurance in council governance position and content of the statement before it's publicly released. The work of the internal audit function, reviewing the charter, annual plan and performance and opinion of the audit manager. The risk management framework, so updates on the risk register, which are received at regular meetings. The policies, which we've had 3 brought before us to enhance the anti-fraud and internal control positions. The treasury management policy and processes, receiving reports throughout the year, particularly on topical treasury areas, and receiving assurance on the assets that are managed according to the SICFA Code of Practice. Also the external audit, receiving reports from external auditors who attend quite a number of the meetings during the year, including statement accounts for the annual report for 21-22. So finally, you'll notice that at the end of the report, there's a self-assessment exercise that's being conducted against SICFA effectiveness checklist to ensure that we're working to best practice and it's identified areas of future improvement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Booth. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor French. Would you like to exercise your right to speak now or reserve your right to do so at the conclusion of the debate? Reserve? Thank you. The item is now open for debate. Councillor French, would you like to exercise your reserved right to speak, please?
Nothing further.
Thank you. Councillor Booth, would you like to sum up, please?
Yes, I think the report's fairly self-explanatory, and obviously I've just gone through what's covered in it. Obviously, if there are any questions that members have on the role of the Audit and Risk Management Committee, then feel free to approach the chair and vice chair when they're back. Or I'm sure any other member of the committee would be willing to answer questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, members. The recommendation is at page 79 of the report and is for full council to acknowledge the work of the Audit and Risk Management Committee for 2023-24. Is that duly noted? Thank you. Item agenda 12 is the revised code of procurement, which is on pages 89 to 134 of the pack. This is a report in relation to a revised code of procurement. And I now call upon Councillor Bowden as portfolio holder for governments to present this report. Councillor Bowden, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I must admit I was hoping you'd call someone else to present this particular report. I'm wondering how many people have actually read this report in full, all 46 pages. I suspect not every single person in this chamber has read all 46 pages. That's because it's a pretty dry subject, but it's an important one. And the importance is important in two ways. First of all, to ensure that we have processes and practices in place which comply with the law. And secondly, so that we are open and transparent in what we do and how we do it. This has been caused by the passage of the Procurement Act 2023, which made certain changes so far as public procurement is concerned. For example, the thresholds have been changed between when you can have a procurement using quotes rather than tenders. There's been a change to do with the exact way in which procurement will now take place, and it now has to be much more open and transparent than was ever legally required before. These legal requirements will come into force on the 24th of February 2025, and because we need to make changes to our practices, in fact we will need to update our procurement portal. Because we need to make changes to comply with the law, we also need to make changes to the code of procurement that we've got. And that's what this report is about. So it is to comply with the law and to ensure that we uphold the best practices which the law now requires. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bowden. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Booth, would you like to exercise your right to speak now or reserve your right to do so at the conclusion of the debate?
Chair.
Thank you. The item is now open for debate. Right, Councillor Booth, would you like to exercise your reserved right to speak?
Chair, I think the leaders summed up what's covered in the report.
Thank you. Councillor Bowden, would you like to sum up, please? Thank you. Thank you, members. The recommendation is at page 89 of the report and is for full council to agree to implement the revised code of procurement at Appendix A for adoption on the 24th of February 2025. Is that agreed? Thank you. Agenda item 13 is a report in relation to a proposal to consider revisions to the planning scheme of delegation within the council's constitution. The report can be found at pages 135 to 146 of the agenda. I now call upon Councillor Laws as portfolio holder for planning and flooding to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Planning scheme of delegation. I am proposing some minor changes to the scheme of delegation in relation to planning to assist with the efficiency and effective running of both planning services and the planning committee, which the rationale for each change contained within the report. Proposed change 1. At the moment, a planning application is called into committee if 6 letters of support or objection are received, contrary to the officer's recommendation. This includes if the objections are received from the same household. These letters of support and rejection are also processed right to when the decision is to be issued. The proposal is that the 6 letters need to be from different properties and received within the 21-day consultation period. Proposed change 2. At the moment, the chairman of planning committee is consulted on all normal planning applications that are due to be refused by officers. The proposal is that the chairman of planning will no longer be consulted on householders' planning applications to be refused. The data shows us that only 1 out of 422 applications shared with the chairman has been sent to committee, which illustrates the work that is required from both officers and the chairman is not commensurate to the benefit of the deprived. Proposed change 3. The time provided for the chairman of the planning committee to respond to consultations from the head of planning to be extended to the end of the working day rather than 48 hours at the moment. This will give the chairman slightly more time to give consideration to the applications received. I propose the 3 changes to the constitution are agreed today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Laws. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Connor, would you like to exercise your right to speak now or reserve your right to do so at the conclusion of the debate? Thank you. Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Chair. I don't object to these changes. I think the one that I want to really talk about is the first change around changing it from 6 people to 6 householders, because I understand the reason for this is basically, you know, as we discussed at the recent planning training, we get a lot of applications sent in, and I think it's a result of developers playing the game and just getting people to write in from various locations. I don't think this personally goes far enough. I think it's only a little tweak and it's not actually going to resolve that matter, because if the developer knows, you know, they just need to get it in within 21 days, I expect most of them actually prepare it before the application's ready, to be quite honest. So I think really it needs to be more of a, we need to consider this to be a bit stricter at some point in the future. I would have thought that maybe we need to consider about the geographic location of where the letters are received in relation to the application. We did have, I think, in the local plan at one point, a point about, you know, community consultations and the area that you needed to effectively get or to consult with for particularly developments. I think it was in the rural area. And I think that's probably the route we ought to go to, because at the moment you can get an application for an amendment to someone's house and it'll be someone from 3 villages over, but because they're in the neighbouring ward, that counts as a suitable letter, and the impact it's going to have on that person is negligible. But if it's our neighbour, it would be a major impact. So we need to concentrate on who's going to be, you know, impacted. I think when it gets to larger applications, like major applications, that there's probably a different test we need to consider. So I don't think it goes far enough with trying to streamline the process, but I'm not going to object to it today. So they're just observations that I make to the portfolio holder. And the other 2, yeah, I don't see those particularly being any issue. I think the one thing I just want to clarify, you talk about householder applications. What's the difference between that and a minor application? Because I assume there's different terminology. So therefore, you know, why is there a difference there? Just to get your understanding.
Thank you, Councillor Booth. Would anybody else like to join the debate? In which case, Councillor Connor, would you like to exercise your reserved right to speak?
Yeah, yes, briefly, Chairman. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Laws, for that. I absolutely agree. Whatever you in your presentation, we did have a meeting with the head of planning some 2 or 3 weeks ago. We went through it all. It makes absolute sense to me. I look at all these applications, and as Councillor Laws said, I only called one into committee. That gives me more time to free up the larger applications, and which I'm always happy to do. Obviously, being a county councillor, a lot of my days are taken up by that, and it also just gives me another rest of the day to go to Whittlesea, Tid or anywhere else. So I'm happy with that. So I'd just like to commend this to the council, and it's got my full approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Laws, would you like to sum up, please?
I'd love to, Chair. Thank you. If I can come up or come back to Councillor Booth, I think that's acceptable. We had great discussions. It doesn't matter if you put a target of 6 letters in or 14 letters. Whatever the number is, people will meet that if they're determined enough. And we all know from experience that we see photocopied letters. I think it would be helpful not to have them from the same properties, because it's so easy for someone to go to one property and get 6 signatures than it is to actually find them in the locality. Regarding where we are with the weight given to letters of support or objection, if, for instance, we've had one from Denmark, which was interesting, for a Fenland application, and it was a minor, for properties less than 5 or site less than 5, the weight is given to the letters of support or objection from neighbours and people in close proximity to the site. So there is a degree when we actually look at the responses in planning, but we have to be mindful that every letter that is submitted must go on the website, and obviously that has to be viewed. Moving forward, you're absolutely right what's in the local plan at the moment, and this will be reviewed by the working party, which is soon to be set up for the local plan. And obviously that can enter into debate, enter into discussion, but like you, I don't think at the moment this is quite strong enough, but it's baby steps to get there. That's the whole point. So as I say, they're minor changes at the moment, and we must bring members in the future to discuss the local plan and this type of topic. Householders, yeah. Minors, obviously it's less than 5 properties and it's brick walls and it's sheds and things like that. Which if you consider, if an officer does report a planning officer for an application, the same amount as time is spent in investigating a shed, assessing it, probably taking photographs and everything else as it would for 10 or more properties. So to me, this is effective, it's cost effective for officers' time, and also for committees' time, the length of the agendas, what we're getting. I mean, it's good, I'm not complaining the number of applications we have in, but I think we've got to be mindful what those applications are. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Laws. Thank you, members. The recommendations are at page 135 of the report, and for councillors to revise the planning scheme of delegation within the council's constitution as set out at Appendix A. Is that agreed? Thank you. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this afternoon's meeting. I'd like to thank you for your attendance, and may I remind you that the next ordinary meeting of full council will take place on Monday, the 16th of December 2024 at 4 p.m. Thank you.